Hey guys, how's it going? Matt McNeil, sitting here in the garage, and got blank number 1, blank number 2, and blank number 3. Now, what's interesting about this is these two I foamed in the mold, but number 3, I decided to take a chance and do an experiment with him because as complicated as this sculpt was to mold, and for me it's complicated, probably for guys who do spend a lot of time making molds, this is like child's play, but I was very, very nervous about the undercuts in the, let me get this out. I think that's saran wrap in his mouth. We'll get to that in a second. As complicated as the undercuts were on this guy, I made a really strong effort to make this nose as linear as possible when I pull out a blank, that very little of this holds up the latex from freeing itself from the inside of the mold. So what I did was, while the upper palette is sculpted, it's shallow or thick here. So that really the only thing that could hold us up is this little tooth area and maybe the hump of his nose, but this is still pretty flat. So that way, I thought when I pull the blank out, it would come out straight. And if you know anything about undercuts, this is a good shape if you're pulling this way. This is a bad shape if you're pulling that way. There's a little bit of that here and a little bit of that there, but not so bad. I also made sure that I had a nice gum line that I could still paint and create some depth, but I made sure also that this lip wouldn't have gotten stuck, so that when I was either pulling the clay or the latex out, that it prevents me from pulling the blank. And that is why I made my 3-piece mold with a seam line here. I figured this was a pretty good place to clean up a seam line, and what it allows me to do is when I take the bottom piece of the mold off, which is this neck piece, it gives me access to this lower jaw, because if you're going to see anything, you're going to see this lower jaw, right? Unless, you get on your hands and knees and are looking at the sky, you're not going to see that upper palate. But you will see this, and there is a tongue to come. This is just the root of the tongue that I will then glue a latex tongue to after the fact, but I digress. But what I did was this piece of the mold comes off. It allows me access to this, which for both clay cleaning purposes, particularly because of this lip and these little overhangy things that dogs have, I didn't want that stuff in clay to get stuck in the mold, and I certainly don't want it to get stuck in the mold with latex. And what it allows me to do, I pull this off, all of this latex is exposed, I can kind of pinch it and pull it out. Now, that works out really, really easily when your blank is hollow. But the moment you fill it full of foam, you end up with a situation where now everything isn't rigid, but it's being pushed out against the sides of the mold. And when you pull the thing out, you end up, potentially creating wear in all of these details. And this is where all the fun is, right? All this detail work. That's where all the fun painting comes, and we certainly don't want to wear any of this stuff out. So after pulling a couple of these, I actually realized that the nose, this upper nose piece, not a problem at all. Lower jaw, not a problem at all. The eyes, on the other hand, were a little bit tricky because I'm using eye blanks, and this eyelid extends way up and around the bottom side of that blank. So when I pulled the first two of these, that was actually the sticking point when trying to pull in this direction, because it was wrapped around that eye blank. So it did give me a little bit of trouble. So I thought, well, if I could actually get to the eye, then I could loosen that latex up as I'm pulling the blank out. But if it's foam filled, I can't do that. Also, the foam filling potentially could wear this mold a little prematurely, which I don't want that as well. So my experiment, and who's to say it will be successful? I have a feeling that it will, because last night what I did was I wrapped this blank number 2 in saran wrap, completely in saran wrap. And I got some plaster bandages, and I made a 2-piece jacket, sort of a shell, which is this thing right here. In the meantime, I had this blank number 3, curing in the master mold. Now, my idea here was I wanted this shell to be as close to the dimensions of this without making it difficult to put a blank into it. So that, therefore, I wasn't so concerned about the thickness of the saran wrap because it's thin anyway. And then I made a 2-piece, front and back, sort of hard shell that I can then slip my hollow blanks into, because this blank was amazingly easy to get out of the mold. So I don't feel like, other than what damage a regular piece of latex, or liquid latex against hydrocal, that obviously there's always some degradation of the mold as a result of the latex. But I'm now not sanding it. When I'm not pulling it out, I'm not rubbing those details away. So, because I can pull away from the shell inside the mold to free my blank. Now, I've seen guys foam, and I've even tried it, to foam blanks outside of a mold, and it can be done, but it's not perfect. It's not great. And I try to spend enough time on these sculpts that it really bothers me when dimensions are off or things are just a little cattywampus. So I wanted to make sure that I would have the best chance at accuracy that I could, and that's why I did this. And I'll tell you, from what I see here, this latex blank fits very well up against the walls of this 2-piece shell. Now, I don't know how long this shell is going to last. I may have to make another one, and if I do, and maybe even before then, I should go back and put a very thin layer of hydrocal on this, just to create some rigidity that will last. But until I run one and make sure that it works, I probably won't. The other upside to this is this mold is ginormous and super heavy. This one is not. So what that's also going to allow me to do is, when I pour my foam in here, I can roll this mold around easily. This one I was rolling around, but I'm going to throw my back out if I keep that up. So this is going to allow me to roll the foam around a little bit. And obviously the jacket is going to prevent my blank from expanding in areas that should not be expanded. It will hopefully restrain this blank to keep a shape that is as close to the sculpt as possible. So cross your fingers, wish me luck. I'll report back when I pull this guy out, and we'll hold one up next to one of the other blanks and see if this is a viable thing, if there are any differences, or if it's worth doing. But so far, other than my garage floor, because again, I sort of become possessed when I get in here, and forget cleaning, I'm just going to make something. So this is why my floor looks like this. But maybe later today I'll clean this floor. Anyway, but this is what we've got now. Wish me luck. Hopefully this works. Hopefully this is something that helps somebody out there that's in the same situation that I'm in, with a blank, trying to figure out how to foam it outside of the mold, because you don't want to do any damage to your master mold. You want to get as many good, clean, perfect pours out of that as possible. And at the same time, you want to be able to fill your blank with foam without it becoming distorted or warped. So there you go. Hope everybody's having a good day, and wish me luck. Talk to you soon.